this week. He served on both the asset management and also the school's facility department. So if you don't mind joining us for just a second and pay a moment of respect. Thank you very much. Okay, and as I said once before, there are sign-up sheets in the back. If you would be kind enough to sign up, and then that'll be brought up to the front. The municipal side is from 6 to 7:30. The school is from 7:30 till whenever. Okay? I have the first on... Jeanette, are there other housekeeping items that I need to take care of here? Just the... Okay. This is really the opportunity for public hearings to be held in the town's council's preliminary budget for fiscal 2016 and 2017. The hearing on all funds except the school fund and the cap reserve fund. If you have some questions, again, please sign up and come down and join at the microphone over here. Please give your name and address, and we'll be more than happy to hear what you've got going on. The first person on the public comment page this evening is Mark Zaccaria.
Mr. President, honorable members, thank you. My name is Mark Zaccaria. For the record, my address is 35 Congdon Hill Road in the Saunderstown section. I come down first to make an overhead comment to congratulate you all, and perhaps especially the town manager, on presenting a proposed municipal budget that has such a small increase in a time of rising costs. It is leadership in that it proves it can be done. I hope that you will maintain that course as you bring it to the final budget, because there may be places where it can be trimmed even further or needed to be expanded, but keep in mind that most of the rest of us have not had any income increases to deal with our personal accounts, and we're all in this together. So my congratulations to you. You've proved that it can be done. And now I'll be back and talk perhaps a little bit more at 7:30 to see about the hard part of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Ricky Thompson, please.
Good evening. Ricky Thompson, 194 Plain Road. I have a couple questions and a comment. My first question is, are you changing the transfer station from a taxpayer service to a profit center? If you like, I can expand upon that further.
Please.
You're increasing the bag tie cost 25% for a sheet of bag ties, when essentially you only need a 12.5% increase to cover the cost for the additional tipping fees. Additionally, you're planning on charging $10 mattress recycle fee, when based on the RI mattress recycling plan, and again, if I understand right, North Kingstown is participating in that plan, you shouldn't be charging for a mattress recycle.
Mr. Thompson, I can only address one thing, since my business is mattresses. There's a new $10 per piece tax that's going to be added on to every single factor of bedding that I sell. So a king-size set, which is 3 pieces, is going to be a $30 tax. Not going to the state of Rhode Island, but going to the Mattress Recycling Center, which is a 501c3. Again, I'm not sure what the charges are with the transfer station, but I know when we have to dispose of bedding, it costs us, I think, $15 a piece now to get rid of it. Right. So I can only speak from my experience, not what's going to go on at the town.
Possibly Mr. Bergeron can comment on that, because, again, according to the Rhode Island Mattress Association,
Phil Bergeron, Public Works. After we had the budget discussion, I did ask him to look a little bit further into it. As you recall, I had indicated to you at the budget meeting that we, as Mr. Thompson has indicated, we weren't going to be allowed to charge in order for this program to go forward. And that may in fact be true. We haven't set the fee schedule yet, but we're still looking into that. If there are some costs that need to be recovered, and we're allowed to do that because it does cost us, still cost us money outside the transportation to the, beyond the $10 that is intended to cover. If we can do it legitimately and it's proper, that we will. Our goal is to recover all the money that it costs us to operate that transfer station and not to fund any other source outside the transfer station. And to the first question, that's what we did. I told you that there's other costs associated with the transfer station, the compost pile, the recycling, all of which costs us money that's not recovered. It's recovered through the tax base, but a majority of those users of that transfer station use all the commodities. They deposit commodities elsewhere. So that was the discussion, as you recall, that we had at the budget meeting. I think that's a legitimate way to recover the cost and make sure it operates as a true enterprise fund. But the question of the mattresses, Kim is going to get back to me. And in fact, that may be true that we cannot, as part of the state law, charge.
Okay. Maybe we could get back to Mr. Thompson on that.
If you like, what I can do is I'll send you a link to the rules and regulations for this program, and in particular on page 14 it states participating transfer stations and other covered entities may not charge for receiving mattresses generated in Rhode Island. I'll be happy to send that to you so that you have it.
Thank you.
And then the other question is the bag ties. You're going up your cost, you're raising the cost more than what is required for the increased tipping fees.
I think he just,
right.
that there's the mulching and other things, but I guess it probably wouldn't hurt us to do a little exercise just to see what we would anticipate as the fees, only because I remember one of the comments made was we went, rather than going $9, we went to $10 to prevent having to make change or something like that, and I could, if we could do it for $9, maybe it's worth at least doing the exercise on it.
When we did the analysis, the amount of money that with the raising of the tipping fees for the bags, the tags for the bags, and the tonnage covers the cost of the transfer station. Otherwise, we are in a shortfall, and the taxpayers have to cover the difference. That analysis has been done, and I'll be glad to share that with anyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
My next question is I'm interested in the status of our undesignated fund. Is that something I can ask?
Let me ask a question. This is not really a question and answer period for us. Is it more for a public comment, if you have a comment on something? If you have a question, a specific budget question, I would suggest that you put it in writing to either Mr. Przyzwola or Jeanette or the town manager, and they can get those questions answered for you. This is really an opportunity, a forum for people to express their comments, if you will. Okay?
All right. No, fair enough.
Thanks.
Just so you're aware, at the beginning of the meeting, you had said if people have questions. So,
I mean, I would like to know the answer to that question. I mean, is it possible that if the information is available, can we bring it out now, since we have people here interested in hearing?
Is it online, or is it someplace I can find it?
The undesignated fund has not changed since the audit report was released, so it's within the audit report. It's the exact same number. We haven't called upon that during the fiscal year.
Is that online?
Yes,
I
it
can
is.
find it? Okay. If I can't locate it, I'll send you an email, and you can send me a link. Appreciate that. My last comment is that I was very appreciative of the hard work that the council is doing in properly funding the general fund. And I just want to add that I'm hopeful that you use the same consideration when you consider school funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin Dubois.
Thank you, everyone, members of the council. I know that later on this evening.
Would you do me a favor? Could you give us your address? Just state your name and your address, if you don't mind, please.
Sure. I am a employee here in the town, but I do not live here in North Kingstown, so I can give you my home address, but I don't think that would be relevant to your records.
Just a matter of record for us, please.
Okay. 55 Michael Drive in Bristol, Rhode Island.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. As I was saying earlier, I know that in the second half of your budget hearing tonight, you'll be discussing school issues in particular, and so I may come up with a comment more germane to that at the time, but I figured now while it's early and everyone's still awake and the room still has a good number of people, I just wanted to share one quick comment with you if I would. I've been a teacher here in North Kingstown going on 16 years now over at the DMS building, and I'm here tonight because I am proud to be the voice of all the North Kingstown educators who request that the town and school budget in unison reflect the ability to give the teachers a fair contract and fair raise. As you know, right now we are in those contract talks, and of course contract talks and budget times doesn't always coincide the way that they should. And so I'm coming in early to make these comments and that request of you. Over the last several years, the town of North Kingstown has implemented a plethora of great and necessary programs, and we appreciate your part in helping those things become a reality. All-day kindergarten, something that teachers have been very vocally in support of and really needed to happen sooner rather than later. Various state initiatives that we often have to implement, often at our own cost. And also the comprehensive district technology plan that best serves kids, and a lot more. It's been said, though, on occasion that the compensation of North Kingstown teachers has lingered at or below the middle average of educator compensation for the state of Rhode Island, whereas our school systems and their teachers have been cited in numerous magazines, such as Rhode Island Monthly, as always being in the top 5, if not the top 3, and NK Teachers voted some of the best teachers across the state of Rhode Island, bar none. And I would ask, and I say that we've always done our part to support all of these initiatives and been a part of the town, and we're proud to be a part of a very good town here in North Kingstown. And I would ask now that you, as members of the board, where the money starts, and then later on with the school committee, that you show your appreciation and your support for us in a very tangible manner. For we cannot continue to put students first if we put teachers last. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Excuse me for 1 second. This evening, we have 2 segments. We have the town and municipal side first, and then we have the school department at 7:30. I would ask that if you're going to get up now, would you keep your comments to the town side, and then we'll address the school department side at 7:30, if that would be okay. Thank you. Martin Lafferty. Okay, thank you, Marty. Chris Petarella. Okay. Would anybody else like to come up and have a comment about our municipal budget?
Looks like you folks will be getting down early. Dick Welch, 8 Arrow Lane. In reviewing the budget, I had a couple of questions, and hopefully at some point I can get an answer. I see that some of the costs of the relocation of the town hall are in the budget, but I feel as though the town hall relocation is a project and it should have its own budget, and it should be so stated, so that the public as well as the town council can follow the progress and the expenses incurred by that move. Otherwise, it's kind of an open checkbook and it will be very difficult to follow. My time on the town council, I, on numerous occasions, mentioned that I didn't agree with having no plans and no budgets on projects that we did, such as the Bostage building and the former town meeting hall. In reviewing the budget information, I queried why, with gas prices being what they are today, I saw a number of $3 and change per gallon, and I don't understand why we're budgeting for fuel at such a high cost relative to what the market is right now. I don't have a crystal ball, certainly, and I know what no one else here does, but I would assume that someone thinks we're going to have an awful dramatic increase in the price for fuel to operate the town. From what I understand, and I think it's called the Master Service Agreement with QDC, annually the town puts in, I believe it is $70,000 into a fund for dredging Allen's Harbor. And please correct me if I'm wrong on this. What I don't understand is I also heard that QDC puts in $30,000 into this fund to do the dredging at some future date. When I look at Allen's Harbor and the people that use it, I'm wondering why we're paying the lion's share into this, and what about the yacht club, the dry storage facility, Little Allen's Harbor? Those are all people that utilize the channel, and are we the only ones that are paying this? And why is it coming out of the general fund and not out of Allen's Harbor as an enterprise fund? I got to make a statement because you don't want to take questions. I have heard through the grapevine while sitting on asset management that there is the likelihood that you're not going to approve the funding of the gasoline golf carts for the golf course. I would just ask you to look at the income that the golf course gets from the rental on the golf carts. They pay for themselves in a very short period of time. They're an excellent revenue producer, and we've gone for an awful long period of time where duct tape was the method of keeping our golf carts together. I would hope that if the case is that you had not planned on funding it, that you do, since that is an enterprise fund. I also say that, as Mr. Thompson mentioned on the price for the tags for the transfer station, I also am disappointed in that you have a 25% increase. I would hope that a little bit of effort could be made to keep it at a more reasonable increase and not do it for the convenience of not having to have change there for the tickets. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Tim Jolly. Tim? Okay. Anyone else? We know you.
Hi, my name is Gregory Blasberg, 70 Whitman Drive, and I know you're not taking questions, so I'm just trying to jive a number that I've been looking for, and it's really specific, so I think the finance manager will be able to get this for me. But if I'm reading it right, I just want to make sure that the town general fund, not school fund, is a 4.53% increase over the prior year, correct? I'm just looking at your proposed budget, page 2.
As was advertised.
Okay, yeah, that's what I just want to make sure. And the only reason I'm asking that is that I've heard some talk and seen some letters to the editor, and I know you folks have very similar difficulties to the school side that I work with, quoting an increase of town spending of a significantly lower number than that. And I'm not being critical of you folks, I just want to make the point that we both have increases that we have to deal with within our budget. And if that is the number, I just want to make sure that the town is aware of what the general fund increase is, which is 4.53%. And I just also want to point out that the town has the ability to raise additional funds in two ways. They're able to increase their tax rate, and they have the benefit of occasional revaluations, with this being a revaluation year. And those two pieces of the equation go together. So your tax bill is a multiplication of the town tax rate times the assessed value of your property. And one thing that helps keep our town budget down, and I know it's helping you folks a lot this year, is that there's a revaluation year, which means tax value of the town properties increased. But that all goes into the same equation. So you got to pay attention to both sides, because both sides would impact your tax bill. And those are my only comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, if I just may clarify, and although the numbers are what they are, and I'm not sure what Mr. Brasbaugh was referring to as a lower number, but remembering that the levy is different. So there was only a 1.6% increase as advertised in the levy amount. So again, two different numbers, so that's not to be confusing.
Thank you, Chief. And I hate back and forths too, so I'm just going to follow up. That's exactly my point, is your levy takes into account the assessed values of the property in town, because you're now taking your town budget, you're determining how much money you need, therefore you find out how much you need to tax the citizens of the town. And that's what our levy is. So I think that may have been, and I believe it was in a letter to the editor, and I've also seen some Facebook comments that, and what was the number you just gave me? The levy increase is?
The increase in the levy is proposed right now at 1.6%.
Correct. But that does not mean that town spending has only increased 1.6%. It's actually the number 4 and change that I referred to. Right. Okay. And again, I'm not being critical of the numbers. I just want to make sure, because there was some confusion in some posts and things, and I thought being a budget meeting, it's a good place to make sure everyone knows the real numbers. Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? In that case, I'd entertain a motion. Yes. Recess. To recess.
So moved.
Second. A motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. I think we're ready to go here.
We're ready whenever you are.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back. This part of the meeting will take place on the school side of the budget. We have some sign-up sheets, and at this particular point in time, why don't we just start right into it? If it's all right, Jeanette, there's nothing else procedurally that you want me to take care of? This is strictly a public comment, not really a question and answer period. If you have some questions and you need to fire them off to either the school committee or the town council, Phil?
Do you mind if I start with a comment?
No, please, be my guest.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to begin this evening by making some comments about our budget, just so people have a sense of, what the school committee is asking for and some of the context behind it. As you all know, these issues, when you get into budgets for something the matter of $60 million plus, can be kind of complicated. So the North Kingstown School Committee has approved a FY17 budget proposal to give to the North Kingstown Town Council for $1,696,519, or 3.59% for the town's increased funding. You may see a different number on the blue pages that are listed back there, but the percentage is a little less, but that's because the percentage is based on the $60 million complete budget, which includes, state funding and grant funding. But for the taxpayer money, the increase we're looking for is 3.59%, or roughly $1.7 million. With the exception of one position transferred from grant funding to operational, the cost of which has been covered by reductions in other budget lines, the entire budgeted year-to-year increases are due to modest rising costs of operation. We have a strong and lean school department. Our student achievement statistics are among the best in the state. North Kingstown School Department currently is ranked 5th statewide on state testing in ELA, math, and science. This performance far outpaces the expectations for our community given its socioeconomic data and its spending compared to other districts. North Kingstown is in the lower half of Rhode Island school departments for per pupil spending. Our staff, including teachers, support staff, and administrators, all receive relatively average compensation compared to other Rhode Island school districts. The North Kingstown School Committee has done commendable work in recent years to find creative options, to find ways to keep year-to-year funding increase requests low, including outsourcing of custodial work, reworking special education services to reduce much of our out-of-district tuitions, and moving to an HSA program for health benefits. On top of this, our budgets have gone through a very tight pruning process where spring budget cuts often go too far and force fall corrective increases in staffing once we see actual enrollment. This happened this year, in fact. Even with this work, the realities of our national, state, and local economy present us with an increasing cost commitments. This budget includes moderate wage increases, which keep our staff roughly at average compensation per other Rhode Island communities. The trust has advised us to budget for a 6% increase in medical benefit expenses and 3% for dental, and the pension costs continue to increase as well. Just these factors, just those points I just made, account for more than 90% of the overall requested increase, just those points. You will notice that one of the major 2015-16 goals for the North Kingstown School Committee, which is to improve our school start times, is not included in this budget proposal. After hearing an in-depth review of the best thinking from the American Academy of Pediatrics and hearing that our community clearly prefers to see our school start times adjusted at the high school and elementary schools, it is my responsibility to advocate for this change. I firmly believe that I and our elected officials from the school committee and town council have the responsibility to address this issue for the good of our children. Unfortunately, making the transportation changes at a cost of $300,000 to $400,000 is impossible, since the rules governing this process in Rhode Island prohibit me from proposing more than a 4% increase in year-to-year spending. The 4% cap, while addressing concerns of those worried about their taxes going up, has left public education and other municipal programs in a truly unsustainable situation. Since 4% is perceived as the irresponsible high, those who oversee these budgets often go as far as pledging zero tax increases or settling on numbers that don't even keep up with inflation, year after year forcing more major cuts to essential programming. The average town rate of increase to our schools over the past 8 years has been just 1.59% per year on average. With such limited funding, North Kingstown School Department has no chance to make improvements that are good for student health and achievement, and no ability to make any significant impact on our aging school buildings or to set out plans for updating our track and field, another school committee goal. If we do this again this year, the school committee will be forced to cut another $1 million worth of staff and resources, both of which we do not have enough of as it is. On top of these concerns, there are those legislative and legal items to which the school departments are forced to respond. Governor Raimondo and Education Commissioner Wagner have made it clear that they follow a philosophy which encourages competition within the public education system. While there are positive aspects to such a philosophy, it presents new financial challenges for local pre-K through 12 districts like NK, in that families are encouraged to shop around for publicly funded education options. In the past, if you lived in NK, you went to NK public schools. Now, that's not necessarily the case. These programs make it imperative that our district does all it can to keep performance and customer satisfaction high, or parents will exercise their option to send their children to charter schools or other public schools in Rhode Island, often creating inefficient dual education systems that become twice as expensive to NK taxpayers. We pay for that if a student goes to a charter school, and we don't have any say at this hearing whether we do or not. To illustrate this point, when we didn't provide full-day K, more parents chose charter schools at a loss of funding to the North Kingstown School Department. Now that we have provided it, kindergarten enrollment for NK students at Compass and Kingston Hill Academy is down 43%. They had 23 students last year. This year they have 13. At $11,500 per tuition, that translates to $115,000 this year that we do not need to include in our request to the Town Council. Meanwhile, kindergarten enrollment in NK schools has increased by 13 students this year, and our data shows that our K students are achieving at a higher rate with the extra time. So that was a good move. Going forward, if we don't provide healthier start times, if we don't invest in our buildings and in our track and field, if we don't keep our staff professional development strong, and if we don't provide excellent educational technology and innovative career and technical program, Some parents will choose to send their children to other schools, and that will be at our expense whether we approve of it or not. I hope that you will approve this budget proposal, and furthermore, I hope that you will work with me to achieve the following items which summarize a vision for NK schools going forward that I believe this community wants for its children. This is a vision for our school department in which all students who are supported with whatever is needed to provide them with world-class learning and opportunities. It's a department where we can provide all the staffing needed to address critical special education challenges and needed social services. It has a long-term plan to keep our buildings modern, comfortable, efficient, and well-maintained. It has a plan for a modern track and field. By the way, that is not a part of this budget proposal. A plan for a modern track and field we can use proudly for statewide events. It has a commitment to school start times that is driven more by the health and learning of our students and less by funding of buses. It has a commitment to maintain and increase our modern high-tech career programming that includes strong relationships with the local business community. It has a commitment to ensuring strong infrastructure and resources for the use of technology and learning. It has a commitment to honor and sustain our strong traditions in athletics, music, theater, the arts, and community service. It has a commitment to providing public relations services to present North Kingstown School Department in the most positive light to NK residents and to the surrounding communities who more and more are becoming our customers. North Kingstown has an excellent school department which performs amongst the finest in Rhode Island and our nation. Its outstanding reputation is truly a most significant factor in attracting families to North Kingstown and is the centerpiece for a strong community and local economy. I hope that the members of the Town Council and the members of our community as a whole will join the school committee and the North Kingstown School Department administration in supporting this budget request and in making a long-term commitment to this vision of excellence. I thank you very much.
Thank you. At this point, Kevin Dubois, do you want to come back up, Kevin? Are you here? Come on up. You're first on this list.
I will be brief since you were kind enough to let me speak earlier. For the record, once again, Kevin Dubois, 55 Michael Drive in Bristol, Rhode Island, and longtime NK teacher, and proud to say so. I would like to thank you in advance for your support, both the Town Council and the school committee, to work together to fund everything that is necessary and important for the improvement of North Kingstown schools and the town of North Kingstown. There's a reason why North Kingstown is one of the best towns in Rhode Island, and Rhode Island Monthly and other places continue to say so. I'd like to thank you in advance if you're able to provide the full and proper funding that has been asked so that both programs and bargaining and reasoning with teachers and the staff who help to provide a lot of those programs can all be done in good faith and in good measure. The superintendent made many great points, and I like to say that it's a great day when he and I are on the same page. That people should know that, and I'll put that on record, that we're on the same page about a lot of those important things for our kids. I know you heard a number of priorities for the town earlier and for the school department now. All I'm asking, besides to hear the value of all those programs and the value of the teachers and staff you see here tonight who took time from their families and their children, as you have done, to be here tonight, to let you know how important all of this is to us as well. And I ask that the priorities that have been asked for in both the programs and for school funding not be made into a choice between programs and teachers, as sometimes the political process makes it into being. Because both of those things need to go hand in hand. You can't have great schools and systems without great educators, support staff, administrators, and you need those programs to be put in place so that teachers can come in and do those great jobs as well. And you're always going to hear from certain people who want that zero budget, who want that blank line item. And I respect their desire to see things reined in and kept under control, but it's a matter of what's most important in the 21st century and for our kids. And sometimes you get what you pay for. And I would ask that everyone consider that duly. And we're happy to work together with the school department and the town, as we have many times in the past when fiscal times were really tough. And we were okay with taking 011 and other ways to meet the town and the school department more than halfway. And now we're asking tonight and in the near future that you value the programs and that you value the teachers and staff, and we ask for your support as well. Thank you very much for considering it.
Thank you very much. Brent Cleveland, please.
Brent Cleveland, 25 Seagrass Way, North Kingstown, Rhode Island. What a great presentation. I don't know how I can possibly follow that, other than to speak as a citizen of North Kingstown in that I'm concerned about our rising taxes overall, of which, of course, the school budget is the largest part of our town's taxes. I'm concerned that my friends have left. They've left their homes and they've moved to South Carolina, to Florida, to Texas, some even to Arizona. We're not competing against other towns for their school budgets and all. I mean, we're fighting for a way of life. We compete against Narragansett, where their taxes are half of what our taxes are here. I am all for people getting paid their due. But when I look at these things, I do have a couple of concerns. One is that I was here when we were talking about all-day kindergarten, about how this was absolutely essential for the kids, how they needed it, and how it was going to contribute to their learning experience. Well, granted, it did. But the plead here was that the school department needed the money. It was important for the kids. It had overwhelming support. We listened to one person after another come up and fight for its defense. But it turns out that the school department had the money anyway. It didn't need to have that increase. In fact, in the last 5 years, the surpluses that they have run in their budget has been $343,000, $775,000, $2.3 million, $500,000, and last year $1.3 million they ran as a surplus. So at any rate, then I understand that there's a meeting that is going to take place this summer to go over that surplus and to figure out where they're going to spend it for items that perhaps ran over budget or weren't even mentioned on the original budget. This I found surprising. I also found it surprising that there was over $100,000 that was spent putting an elevator into Fishing Cove School. And that's a school that I understand is now being considered to be taken out of service as the change in the demographics of the children have changed. I took the time to actually print out the budget, and I was reading parts of it today. I was very concerned that when I looked at Fishing Cove, which I lived near, it had 252 students. When you divide the cost of the school by the number of students, you come to $20,835. $20,000 a year. So a child in that school for 5 years, we're spending $100,000 to educate? There's got to be a more cost-efficient way to do this. That's also compared to Forest Park, which has a cost of $14,015. Hamilton is $12,465. That's amazing. I started looking at the high school. The high school with the salaries, wages, and benefits totals $15,267,000. When you divide that by 155 students, 155 employees, counting the custodial, the drivers, the teachers, everybody in the high school, that comes out to $98,498 per employee. That's the average wage. I was surprised to hear that as well. Anyway, we need a cost-efficient way. I'm sorry, did I miss a comment? Anyway, we need a more cost-efficient way to deliver this. The whole school model of gathering children together, putting them in a building, teaching them for 6 or 7 hours a day and sending them home really is becoming obsolete. Now with technology, with tablets, with distance learning techniques, there are other ways that we could be delivering the product in a more efficient way. I think that combining schools is something we should be looking at, which, of course, the survey that's underway, and I believe the school department will have this summer, will help them look at that situation. The hours of operations may be something that could be looked at. Even the months or the weeks or the periods of operation could be looked at. There could be intern or apprentice programs with area businesses to run a relationship with the local business community. Fees could be derived from that, so that could offset some of the costs. There could be commercial after-school programs. There could be things that parents would pay for that would take place in the schools to use them. I just ran a conference in New York, and I rented a facility at the FIT, the Fashion Institute of Technology. I paid them $12,300 to use their auditorium for 2 days. Perhaps we could look at ways that our schools could be used in non-school use opportunities. There has to be a more efficient way to do this, and I challenge all those involved, the school committee and also the school council and the town council. Get outside of the box and consider a way that teachers can be paid a fair wage, that we can give quality education to our children at a reasonable cost. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bill Mudge, please.
Bill Mudge, North Kingstown, 710 Old Baptist Road. I have several comments, and I'm going to leave something with the council. I'm not sure how anybody could read this budget. I give the gentleman credit here because there isn't sufficient information in the school budget to really look at what our expenditures are. For example, we have no idea, and this budget is not a zero-based budget. Like, what did we spend last year, and what are we spending this year? I think the council should look at that. I hope the school committee would too, and I will leave you some documents to show you that. There are many things in the budget that I'm, in fact, the presentation, just a couple of technical issues here. The school's budget provides no detailed information, none whatsoever, on some $2.5 billion of revenue that's coming in from the federal government. It's not in the budget. If you look at page in your budget 19, you'll also see, and 28, you'll see this also a difference in funding of almost $722,000 for fiscal year 16. I don't know what those are, but I also noticed in 16, like $3 million went out of the budget. Don't worry about taking your comments because I'm going to write them up and provide them to you. Okay? We all want a good educational system. There's no question about that. And I firmly support a quality educational system. But I think we have to show more responsibility and more openness, transparency with our budget process. The gentleman just mentioned Davisville Elementary School. He's absolutely right. Why in the Lord's name did we spend $1.5 million in there, which we're supposed to save, okay, with out-of-district expenditures, which we haven't, by the way, $1.5 million in a facility, and now we're thinking, let's close a couple schools. What kind of thought process was that we went through? We're going to close a couple schools now, and we just spent $1.5 million where 30 children are duty stationed, if you may. Of course, we also, what wasn't in the budget before and what wasn't identified to us, was the transportation costs to move the teachers around and the kids around to come back and forth. That, again, needs to be looked at. And those are the type of decisions that we have to look at. Also, not in the school budget is any capital project funding. None, zero. Why isn't the school committee adding capital projects to their budget? That's a requirement of law. You know, and by the way, capital projects can be funded out of school department money, town council extra money, if you may, or bond money. So there's a variety of sources. But apparently the school department doesn't want to include any capital projects in their budget. And I noticed in several occasions there's a misinterpretation of what a capital project is, like maintenance, repairs, and things like that. So we're not really following that process, and I applaud the Asset Management Commission to start to look into some of these things, because when we go into a budget process and we're asking, for example, this year, $1 million to do something to the schools, what's that something? Are they deficiencies? Are they maintenance deficiencies, repair deficiencies? Have we looked at what our maintenance plans are? Are we funding our maintenance plans? I noticed in this year's budget, we have cuts in the maintenance programs. How can that be? Keep talking about we don't have enough money yet. We're cutting maintenance programs. Personally, I don't feel we know what our maintenance budget is. And we don't know if we're following that maintenance budget. And if you go over the last 5 or 6 or 7 years, you can look at these anomalies in the spending and, hey, I budgeted so much for maintenance repair, but at the end of the year, you didn't spend that much. Money went other places. Council, you got to really look at that. Talk about issues coming in here and the cost of education. I know, Bob, you've been working on this. I'm very disappointed in the town council and the school committee, although the school committee did send a letter in, not supporting or requesting our administrators, our elected officials, to put a simple request in for an exception to the funding of charter schools. Here's a state that comes down and says, you guys got to do all this. You got to put your kids at charter schools and everything else. Well, we're losing close to $1 million a year in revenue. That for the prices of peanuts, papers, Cracker Jacks, we could bring those kids back in, repopulate our schools at hardly any additional cost. Why is the Department of Education overriding the will of a town? Why are they doing that? Why is the state doing that? We've got a town charter. Why aren't we going back and say, we'll take a vote in our town to see if we want charter schools? And see what the community says. We take a vote for everything else, right? Kindergarten, let's vote, let's have kindergarten. Why don't we vote to see if we want the prerogative? I'm not saying we don't do it, but the prerogative of sending our children to charter schools or not. Now, I've asked that for many years. Bob Jones has been doing a great job on trying to address that issue. We can get an exception to the charter, to the bill from our legislators, put it in. Why can't every town have their own choice? We talk about the political elections. Everyone wants choice, states' rights and everything else. Where's North Kingstown citizens' rights? We need to address that. Bob, you've done a good job. You've been trying to be on top of that, and I commend you for that. Another thing you need to look at again this year. I'd be glad to help the council. We're getting hosed by revenues from Jamestown. Okay? Substantially. We should be getting at least $2,000 to $3,000 more dollars a student. And I'll be glad to run a seminar if you want to show you why. And it's very simple. The mathematics is phenomenally simple on that. But all we had to do, and what we need is the will to look at that. We haven't done that in the past. We've ignored it. We haven't looked at life cycle cost-benefit analysis for programs. We haven't looked at the cost of Jamestown's tuition and what they should be paying or not paying. We've been too emotional. Oh, we can't let Jamestown walk away from here. But it's costing North Kingstown money. It's cost us one bundle of money over the years. We need to address that. We want to get the revenue. If they don't want to come to North Kingstown, let them go to Jamestown. Let them, Narragansett, everything else, because they're going to do that anyway. By the way, we probably should up their water rates, get a little more money to compensate for that, by the way. I see there are many differences in the budget. There's a couple in here that I'm very concerned with. I find out, and I'll put these in writing. I just got back from vacation, and I was just able to get information on the general fund from the finance director. Unfortunately, he is unable to provide me any information on how we're going to spend some $2.5 million of federal revenue next year. Now, I know, go to the city of Providence and their budgets. They detail on what they're going to spend, where they're going to spend their federal revenue in their budget. Why don't we do that? Legal services. Going up. Actually, I screwed up my spreadsheet here. Okay. 1670. I noticed in this, the details of the budgets, we now are paying for some $80,000, $85,000 a year that was not addressed in the budgets 2 years ago. Apparently it's going down a little bit. I believe that the school committee illegally entered into a contract with our custodians. I'm not sure that the community or the council is aware that the school committee, after I had left the school committee, in fact, a week and a half after I left the school committee, negotiated a contract with the NEA, the custodial contract, and in that, they made an agreement that the custodians, any custodian working in the town of North Kingstown, in perpetuity, and that means if he works for whatever company, A company, B company, C company, doesn't matter. Each employee is going to be getting $8,500 a year, in addition to the salary he gets from the contractor. Now, that could be a $2 million bill, by the way, over a 20-year period, depending on how long the custodians work here. And also, it works against them, too, because there's some effort that will require, them to are forced. Some people, in fact, forced off the program. Now, I went to the Department of Labor and Trade, got the, so forth and so on, and I think that needs to be looked at because, in my opinion, that's a contract in perpetuity. It's beyond 3 years, beyond 5 years, 10 years, and that the school committee cannot get into that, enter into that type of a contract, and it should have gone through the town council and our solicitor. Why didn't that happen? We had a budget last year and we had a surplus and everything else, but nobody came back and identified the fact that, we're paying $100,000 extra for our custodial service, which is supposed to save us a lot of money, which indeed it never has. Okay? So there's another issue. I'm not going to sum up too much, but I can also say that I'm extremely disappointed not to see any money in the budget to correct the air conditioning system in the school this year, the high school air conditioning. Several years ago, 3 years ago, we spent $65,000 to put fans in to ventilate the school and everything else. I think it was in 14. That never worked. Doesn't work today. We can't run the fans in this school because of the noise. We have programmed the fans in the school when you need them the most, because not this time of year, that they don't run during the day. The fans only run at night to cool the building down. If you look at the study that was made by Fitzmyer and Tucci, they didn't recommend that. Okay? And furthermore, if you really look at the study of Fitzmyer and Tucci, okay, presented to the town, we spent somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000 or $600,000 to put new air conditioning units on the roof of this building that were not in the report and not a recommendation of Fitzmyer and Tucci. Somebody needs to look at these things. That's in writing, and I will give you that. And we still are going to fund more money? My Lord, what's going on? There's no oversight on these things. Why didn't the Asset Management Commission get involved in some of these things? Why didn't we do our life cycle cost analysis and budgeting on some of these projects? We need to get the act together. And that comes down to my final comment, is that we need a finance committee in North Kingstown. Can't fool around. You guys have been fooling around too long in the council. We need one to be able to come back, understand the budgets. Not that I'm an expert, but I have a little bit of background on it, so we can get other people in that you can rely on when you're evaluating the budgets. And you can have behind-the-scenes discussions if you want, but you have people looking at these things, and you have them asking the questions. Does it make sense? Is this economically feasible? Is it the thing we need to do? We don't do that. We just jump in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jerome Simone. Did I do that right, Jerome?
No, it's all right. My name is Jerome Simmons.
Simmons. Oh, Simmons. It looks like an E on the end of it.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
My apologies.
I live at 445 Glen Hill Drive. About 15 years ago, my wife and I, having firsthand knowledge of the school system here in North Kingstown, decided that we were going to move here and raise our children in this school system. Our kids are now in college, and over that 15 years, we've seen a lot happen. We've seen award-winning students. We've seen award-winning teachers. We've seen award-winning schools, which make us, of course, an award-winning school system. Also, over those 15 years, we've seen a large turnover in town council, a large turnover in school committee, even a large turnover in school administration members. The constant, I believe, has been the teachers. Teachers tend to stay in their profession, take ownership of their students, of their schools, and see their kids through the system. So, having said that, I would implore you to please think very hard when setting the budget so that the teachers can get a fair contract, and of course, that means a fair raise. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Christine Marinello, please.
That never works for me up there. Christine Marinello, 31 Bromley Court. I'm here tonight on behalf of several citizens. We have signatures of about 50-plus people. We have more. I just wasn't able to get them logistically tonight. Well, I'm happy to provide them to you later tonight or tomorrow. I'm going to read to you because it's on behalf of several people. Mr. President, council members, school committee members, the undersigned citizens are in agreement with the letter from the parents and former parents of the North Kingstown Boys High School hockey team, a letter which I understand you also received, provided to you in support of the school department's budget request. Additional citizens support this as well. North Kingstown schools are generally high performing, but if we want to continue to meet and even hopefully exceed past levels of achievement for our kids, appropriate funding is necessary. We understand there are many financial demands facing the town, but the education of our children needs to remain a top priority. High-performing schools are a draw for new residents, foster community pride and involvement, and favorably impact property values. The budget the school department submitted is in line with the necessities our schools require to maintain buildings and grounds, quality teachers and staff, which North Kingstown is lucky to have, necessary curriculum and technology programs, and sports and academic teams. The school budget approved by the school committee is what's required. Less will require cuts. This budget doesn't even contain any monies for change in school start times because there are too many other competing needs. Parents are always concerned about adequate staffing levels in our schools, and for now, the collective consensus is that school start time changes are not financially feasible. The school committee already combed over the budget, and it includes what is required for our children, our schools, and our teachers. Recently, many parents have advocated for the purchase of additional technology programs to support the one-to-one devices in which the district has appropriately invested. These programs are constantly changing, and though they may be costly, they provide a great opportunity to provide necessary learning tools for all kids, whether they require additional instruction, are on track, or require access to materials beyond grade level. With your support, our schools will continue to be a source of pride for North Kingstown. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Jeremy Jackson, please.
Jackson, 21 Bromley Court. So I just want to start off and I guess commend the school district here. From what I saw, I thought there was a lot of visibility in the financial planning, a lot of rigor put into it, so I do appreciate that. I was able to look at it on the screen of my own iPhone 5 and actually, kind of read the thing, so that's good. Doesn't happen all the time. So what I guess my comment, my concern is, I guess having seen all of the budget, and I am pro-school, I moved here a couple years ago. I have a very young family. The school district was one of the reasons why I came to North Kingstown. It's a driver, I think, for a lot of people with young families and, families, I guess, with school-age children. The tidal wave that seems to be coming, based on the budget stuff I looked at, the 5-year plan of, hey, there's an additional $20 million of funding required to maintain all of these things going forward. That seems to be a concern. I'm only a couple-year resident to the city, like I said, but, last year we had a little budget increase. This year there's a little bit more tax increase. Where is that buffer to pay for big things like this? And I guess I was unable to kind of feel for that. And I know, we don't want to go in and say, hey, we need $5 million next year because that's going to piss everybody off, I guess, for lack of a better word, right? So there's a smart play there saying, hey, here's my 5-year plan. This is what's coming, and kudos to you guys for putting that, putting the forethought into that and just kind of getting that out there. I did not see that from the other side of the budget. Everything was, I need this, I need that, and I couldn't see from the general town budget kind of where the need is going to be 2 years from now, 3 years from now. So I'm not sure if that's in a plan somewhere or if that's just not kind of public information in the financial file that you guys sent out. But that does concern me as a citizen, and where's the tax rate going to end up going if we're not putting aside funding now to pay for some of these big projects that are coming up in the next, I think it was $20 million if I'm wrong, next 5 years, and then there was another 6 or 7 million saying after that. So having said all that, schools, we need schools. I definitely can't say enough about, seeing my children go through, a great education program like I see in North Kingstown. So I'm against saying anything like, oh, the budgets are too high. But I think there's more work to be done, I think, as a community to go through and look at things. Are there things that we can centralize? Are there things that we can, synergistically put together? Reading through all these budgets of all the various, what do we have, 300-400 pages of budget files here, right? Everybody's paying for maintenance on vehicles. Everybody's paying for IT. Everybody's paying for printers. Everybody's paying for cell phones, right? Is there a way to centralize that kind of stuff, pull it together to say, here's a bucket of IT assets. Here's a bucket, somebody getting his maintenance contract for 25 vehicles is a lot cheaper than getting, 5 different maintenance contracts for 5 vehicles apiece, right? So how can we pull that together from, across the town? We're not that big, it's manageable to be able to do that. So I kind of implore you guys, are there more to look at there? Is there more stuff that we can do? But I think we're doing a good job. I'm scared of the bow wave that I see coming, based on the documentation. I think everybody here should be. But we got to start thinking now of how to not cut anything, but be more efficient in how we execute so that we do have the available funding moving forward so that we can pay for these other things that are going to come up and hit us as opposed to just coming back to the well every year, year after year, right? That's not what anybody wants to see. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mark Zakaria.
Mr. President, honorable members of the Town Council, I am Mark Zakaria. Once again, for the record, my address is 35 Congdon Hill Road in the Saunderstown section. I am here tonight to thank the superintendent for a very articulate summation of the qualities of the school. I'm impressed by the teachers who are not only committed to doing a good job, but obviously need to be supported in that. But as an ordinary taxpayer, I look at some of the internal workings of the school committees, such as they're available to me from the outside, and I have a hard time reconciling it. Now, I have a career in Fortune 500 companies here and abroad, and I've read financial documents all of my career, even though I'm not a chartered accountant. And the chart of accounts in the Munis system that's available to the people of North Kingstown to look at is very difficult to see. You heard Mr. Cleveland come up here earlier and say, gee, he reads surplus after surplus after surplus in the operating accounts, And we heard much talk last year about the need for all-day K. Its benefit is obvious. It was described earlier here. But they had the money for it for years, yet waited to implement it until a special appropriation came from the town council. Similarly, we have a budget here that is supposed to be bare bones at the 3 point whatever it is increase, but there'll be transportation issues, and they could cause us to go up against the cap, or perhaps even over it. My point is that you as a town council have shown leadership in presenting a preliminary budget that takes a look at the needs of the town side, takes into account the increases that are going up in everything all the time, and you've still been able to be very, very efficient with the use of the taxpayers' money. I ask you to apply that same leadership in your negotiations with the school committee and try and find out where some of that surplus comes from, if it can be used in lieu of additional town supplemental appropriations, so that we as taxpayers can be confident in a way we aren't now if we try and look at what the source documentation is. Be confident in the fact that the management of our town is as efficient as it can be and is doing the best job with our money. It's your charge. You've shown you can do it on the town side. Please keep that up when you deal with the school side. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian LaCroix.
Brian LaCroix, 53 Sunnybrook Drive, North Kingstown. I'm also a member of this faculty here at the high school for the last 28 years as a special education teacher.
Thank you for your service, by the way.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the council, I'd like to urge you to fully support the proposed budget from the school committee and from Dr. Auger. Dr. Auger, I think, really identified many salient points as to why this school department is one of the best in the state. And I think my colleague, Mr. Simmons, hit the nail on the head when he said the teachers have been the constant in that. I think there are some really good points for taking a hard look at really supporting the budget this year. We have been in some lean years, and I believe the teachers have been very cooperative and very accommodating in our previous negotiations. But I think as we look to the future, there are some things that we know. One, North Kingstown attracts families because of the quality of our schools. Also, the quality of our schools is directly related to the quality of the future teachers that we will attract. And I think we need to consider that very strongly. So, I urge you, as I said, please support the budget in its fully requested form, and I think we will continue to be one of the top 5 school districts in this state. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. LaCroix. Brian Hesford, please.
Good evening. Brian Hesford, 122 Railroad Avenue. Just wanted to say tonight that as a parent of 3 and a teacher here in town, please, when considering the school budget, know that our schools do rank among the tops in the state. This is no doubt a reflection not only of the teachers, but also the families in town. I guess when I ask people why they move to North Kingstown, just time and again what I hear them say to me is it's the schools, and that's not because I'm a teacher. Half the time I'm just talking to them at one of the community events where my children go play. But with that in mind, I would ask that the budget remain flexible to reward those teachers. The teachers that make this place so desirable to come to live. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Mrs. Colleen Pickering.
Colleen Pickering, 35 Rome Street. My children went through the school system. I've been teaching the school system for over 25 years, and I live and pay taxes on it, and I don't like it when my taxes go up. But then you look at the property value of your house, and the property value of your house is so great because we have a great school system. I have seen many changes in my years here as a parent of school-age children and as a teacher. And I think it might be 10 years now, we had a lot of fluff in our school system, and we had a lot of extra things, and our budget was getting cut and cut and cut. And I would say in the past 8 years, we may have cut $5 million out of the school budget. I don't have the exact numbers, but it sounds good. We have cut a lot out of our school budget, and we are down to bare bones. And I can tell, you used to have an aide to copy your papers. We don't have those anymore. And teachers are required to come to school an hour early just to get to the copy machine to make their papers for their day. Gradually, the teachers' days are getting longer because we are cut down to such bare bones. And as I said, the teachers are the constants here. We are an award-winning town. People come to our town because we have an award-winning school system, and it's because of the hard work of these people. And people in this town, we took no raise when the recession was here, and we 0% raise. We've increased what we're paying in copay. But the recession is over, and you still have these people here working hard and harder than ever. And we need our budget, the one you made, supported. We need that budget supported. And right now, they're looking at offering the teachers 0% raise, and that's like giving them a slap in the face when they want to negotiate and not give teachers raises. And they're the ones doing the grunt of the work and the hard work, so we have such a good school system. And I do wish you would support this budget because we don't have much left to cut. I look around my room and what I do, and I'm having trouble finding what else do they have left to cut. And the teachers are working harder than ever to make up for what has been cut. So for people who have been around for years looking at the budget and saying there's no transparency, I have seen a lot of improvements in the transparency in the budget. I think you're doing a good job straightening out a mess that we did have, and it is getting better. And I think we still need to improve on that. We need to find better ways to fund education in the state of Rhode Island because it is the biggest expense to the towns. And, you do want your taxes to stop going up. And I like the idea of creative, merge the maintenance for the town and the school department. Use the same trucks for the two places. Be creative and think of those things to help on the town's end of the budget. But I do ask the town to support the school's budget and these fine teachers that are all here. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. Amy Coleman, please.
Amy Coleman, 71 John Scott Lane. First, I feel like a couple of people have been critical of the fact that the town found some extra money to give for full-day kindergarten last year, and I just, the fact that you gave the money last year, you were forward-thinking, it became mandatory, and the incentives that we received last year were gone this year. So, I appreciate that, and I actually spoke to my daughter's teacher. I know my daughter is already at the point in reading where she needs to be at the end of the year. She was at that point in March, and I know that, I asked her teacher, and she said she's found that with all her students. They're all on track, so I just want to thank you for being forward-thinking in that respect last year. We moved here. I'm not related to any teachers in the town or anything like that. We moved here because of the schools, and, I taught my son plays hockey in Warwick. A lot of the parents there look at, they're between North Kingstown and East Greenwich to see where they want to move, and it is because of the schools. And I think the teachers are a huge part of it. If I send an email to either my son's teacher or my daughter's teacher, my son, they're both at Stony Lane. My son is in kindergarten. My daughter's in kindergarten. My son's in third grade. I get an email back. I don't even wait 24 hours. I've been on the phone on a Sunday night with my son's third grade teacher. You know, whenever you, both of them, whenever you need to talk to them, they call me back. There was a situation with my daughter where one of the other students was targeting her back in December and, you know, I guess assaulting her, for no better term. And, you know, the teacher called me, the principal called me. She was on top of that situation. And there, I mean, the teachers that I've had the pleasure of having my children have been so committed. And I think that, you know, it's just so important that it's my understanding they haven't had a raise in 8 years. And they deserve a raise, and they deserve to have fair benefits. I was working for the state of Rhode Island for 2 years, and the benefits for the state of Rhode Island have been chipped away so much. You know, I finally said, you know, it's not worth it for me to stay here. I didn't get in under the old benefit and pension system. So, you know, I fear that if, you know, we don't kind of keep track with other towns as far as the salaries and the benefits, you know, we're not going to get any new teachers to come. Some of the teachers who have been here, they have to stay because of tenure and things like that. But we still need to be fair to them. And you know, I support the school's budget in general because I just think it's so important to have a good school system. And that's all. Oh, and actually, there was one more thing I wanted to mention. I know last year it was important, and it was in the budget for the other town employees to get a raise because it was important to be fair to them, and they deserved it. And this is another, I mean, it's a bigger group, but it's just another group of town employees, and I think it's really important to be fair to them, and they also deserve a raise. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Amy. Tanya Carroll.
Good evening, Tanya Carroll, 118 Pinecrest Drive. I'm just going to echo what a lot of people said tonight, and I also feel like we're echoing what we said at the full-day K justification. We moved to this town for the schools, as did so many families that have already come up and other families who've been polled on different issues. It really saddens me that the school department is putting forward a budget that may not even be passed, and it's only going to fund things at the current level and possibly provide the staff and faculty a slight increase in pay. Why not provide a budget that will go beyond that, and so that we can flourish more, provide more programs, and enhance what we already have? Why does everything just have to be at the baseline? So it's really incomprehensible to me that you'd even slash the minimum budget that's being proposed at this time. Our family, we can choose and move to another town. We're not tied down in North Kingstown necessarily, but we did come here for the schools, and I'd be really sad if those young families don't move here anymore. These families do provide a lot of support to the school systems. Parents can only do so much. I wish I could pay the teachers. They deserve six-figure salaries, by the way, but I know that's not even in there. I mean, our kids are there all day. They take care of your children, and I'm just impressed every single day with what the teachers do for us. And so I hope you do consider funding the budget as proposed and maybe even go beyond that. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Jolly, please.
Hi, Jim Jolly, 45 Top Hill Road. And I just want to say, a proud resident as well, I echo many of the comments I've heard earlier. My wife and I grew up in Lincoln and Woonsocket and got our educations out of state, came back here and chose North Kingstown. No ties here necessarily, but chose it for the school system. And the reason I'm in front of you tonight is I'm particularly proud of the budget last year, which included funding for the boys' high school hockey team. My son's a sophomore, will be a junior. We have two kids additionally behind him. They'll be coming up through the program. So to have my oldest be treated as all the other student athletes here means a lot to us, as we've put a lot of time and energy in. So I want to thank you for that, and again, we're behind the budget going forward here and support that fully. We have 62 signatures of hockey parents also past and present hockey parents who have signed this. So I'd like to present this if I could. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jim McGuinn.
Good evening, Jim McGuinn, 412 Chimney Rock. At first, I've seen teachers standing up, and I think they should stand up again, and I think we should applaud them, because teachers are the critical element of schools. They're what education is about. I have thanked teachers I had in high school, and my daughter went here, and she still is in contact with many teachers she had, and I see them, and when I do see them, I thank them, and when she was in school, I did recognize many of them. Excellent teachers, and that's really the key, is what's going on in that classroom, in the teachers, and the materials that they need, and that's really a part of the budget that I've always supported and felt that we should really make sure that what's going on in the classroom rates number one. One of the things when I look at this budget, I'm chairman of asset management, and I look at this budget, and if you look about three-quarters of the way down, it says school capital reserve, 0. I don't understand that. With all the facilities, all the assets that the school has, how can it be 0? And how has it been 0 for so many years? Now, the school department gave to us a capital improvement plan, asset management, and just in 2017, they said there was $4.3 million needed for the next year. And 1.3 of that was mandatory, had to be done. But yet there's no funding in this budget. I don't get it. And please, I would like, not now, but someone to explain that to asset management. Not just me, but asset management. Is this, and my background is heavy finance since 1980. I've been working with companies, managing large companies, but also working with companies all over the world. When I look at 0, and I see a $1.7 million increase, and I'm not debating that increase, but I look at $1.3 million, I just told you, of additional funding. That gives me $3 million of additional funding the school needs this year to maintain the programs and to do the mandatory improvements needed for the facilities. That's 5% of the budget. I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you budget that. And that gets me to the point that I really want to make here. Last year, I came up, and the last words that were said at last year's budget hearing was, we need a town finance committee. I remember that being said. Watch the tape. It's the last thing that was said. I am going to submit a charge for town finance committee so we all understand the budget. And the budget isn't something you do once a year. The budget is something that you manage throughout the year with. And that's where a finance committee comes in. North Kingston, I'll just read. The proposed draft charge for the committee would be the North Kingston Finance Committee is a town advisory board appointed to provide a level of transparency and public confidence in the management of the town's finances. The mission of the Finance Committee would not be to replace the town council or the school committee's fiduciary responsibilities and legislative oversight of the town's finances and budget, but to assist in ensuring the town's compliance with legal, regulatory, charter, and it's late. the programs that we said we're going to do, because essentially, and a question came up today, and it was a very good question. Someone asked me, well, doesn't the audit committee do that? And I said, no, audit and finance are very different. So I'll just read. Well, accounting collects, reconciles, and presents transactional financial information in conformance with generally accepted accounting practices and government regulation. That's accounting and audit. Finance focuses on management of objectives and strategy that is executed via the budget process to manage and control daily decision making. Make sure the decisions you're making today are consistent with what the superintendent said maybe an hour ago, I'm estimating. But that's the way you achieve those. It's the daily working with the budget versus actual. Okay? An audit can be successfully completed without consideration of adherence to the budget. Most audits never look at the budget. However, a budget is severely marginalized without reliance on generally accepted accounting practices to compare budget versus actual. I'm asking for three things. One, that in the budget that is adopted by this town council, that there is an adequate number, and asset management will give you recommendations. And I know you did it for the town, capital improvements, but for the school. And we need to manage to that number. There needs to be a capital improvement money. Wherever that money comes from, I look at this and it says fund balance, only $335,000 is coming out of fund balance. I assume that's probably the town. But that should also, there should be, if the school's going to use fund balance, identify what you're going to use. Simple. Town does it. Just identify it. Just tell us. But if I look at this, as asset management chairman, there's a problem. How are you going to maintain these buildings when you have zero? And look at last year. There was zero. But money was spent. Where did it come from? I don't know. But it's a question we all have to tackle. And I think a finance committee, and I'm also going to recommend that there was a budget committee of the school committee that met on a regular basis. And Superintendent Honan, and I'm going back a little while, he was the fellow after Dr. Halley, instituted that and said they should start meeting the first month of the year after they found a deficit in the first 15 days of the year in, I think, 2006, 2007. This helps the school committee. These don't make the decisions for you. They help you. They do the due diligence. They help you make the decisions, your decisions. They don't remove any authority from you, but they help. They help the administration, town and school. They help you make the decisions. So I implore you two things. One is make sure there is adequate funding, whatever the recommendations are, for the school from now going forward, for the capital improvements to maintain these buildings. These are very expensive buildings, and we know they have to be maintained. And we know windows in elementary schools, any parents and teachers know your windows are in terrible condition, as are some other things. So we need to do that. That's number one, capital improvement. Number two is a town finance committee. And number three is, please, school committee, reconsider reconstituting your budget committee. However you want to constitute that, whatever the charge is. But look at your budget on a regular basis throughout the year. Are you on track? If anybody sails in here, you don't just point the boat out the bay and never look at your compass. You constantly are looking at where you are versus where you want to go. That's all this would help you do. So I will give, again, a draft charge for the Finance Committee. Again, it does not take any responsibility away from the town council. It only helps you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this point, would anybody else like to step up and have a word to say? Hearing nobody else, are there any other comments? And I have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Oh, come on down. I'm sorry, I didn't see you there. Name and address, please.
Just come right up.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I did not. My fault.
Good evening, and thank you for the chance. My name is Regina Savasian. I live at 190 Chimney Rock Drive in North Kingstown. I have to start off by saying that my family moved here because of the school department, and I went through the North Kingstown Public Schools. I had an amazing experience, and that has shaped my decision to become part of the North Kingstown School Department team. I work as a speech-language pathologist, and I service primarily the preschool. So I just wanted to, I feel like a lot of parents can't come this late, so they don't really have the opportunity to speak their minds. But I just want to remind you that preschool exists at Fishing Cove Elementary School. That's where our town preschool is housed. And, you know, we service some of the neediest children in our town. And we're part of the special education program. And many of our children stay special education students, you know, throughout their school careers. There's so much that our teachers and our parents and our staff and our support staff do to help these students in being all that they can be. And they can be so, so much. So I just wanted to remind you, you know, special education and preschoolers, keep these children in mind when you're looking at budgets and all of the numbers, because it's so important. They're here, once they're 3 years old, they're our responsibility. And I feel like they're so often overlooked. So I just wanted to ask you to please keep them in mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jones, do you have something you want to add here, briefly?
I do, thank you. I know it's not this meeting to go on about certain things, so I just want to make a couple comments based on what was given. There's clearly, you know, some, obviously, as economists would say, they're employed because there's always trade-offs that have to be made on certain things. I think one of the important things to understand is some I won't say misinformation, but sort of getting what ground truth is. The school department website and the superintendent puts out a data page about enrollment and enrollment trends. So if you're wondering whether our population is going up or down or sideways or what they're doing, I would suggest you look at that. It's also in the budget book that's presented, so you have a clear understanding of people say we're losing not. In addition, the school committee through the school department has commissioned a study to look at that and get sort of more accurate projections in working with the town and other statistical features to really get a sense of where, as best we can project, the school population is heading to make some decisions, which I think leads to a point that's been brought up. I thank Mr. McGuinn for his efforts and those on the Asset Management Committee and other folks who volunteer their times on all the committees and boards that support the town. I think you kind of know the answer to your question, though, is where's the school capital funding been coming from? It's been coming from its surplus. So while it's true the schools run a surplus, it's also been the primary use of where capital expenditures have come. So you can say 6 of one, half dozen the other in terms of that. I would say if you're curious about surpluses, and not to sort of say us against them, last year if you look at the audit, the school did run about a $1.3 million surplus on $60 million. The town ran $1 million surplus on $26 million. So, you know, it's probably a fair point to look at both sides where those surpluses are being generated from. But you can also argue in your own household budgets how exactly precise you get on running your own budget in terms of let alone a $60 million budget with a lot of moving pieces. The other thing I would add on some of these things is to be conscious of the choices we make. I would, whether this budget aside, if you think about the analogy as you get older and you hit retirement age, hopefully in one standpoint you've saved up some assets for that as your ability to earn income falls, and on the other hand, hopefully you've lowered some of your expenses as well to sort of make those two things match. I think as Mr. McGuinn pointed out, we've not been building up assets to think about our downstream capital things. And on the other side, we've started a little bit, but holistically as a town, we have to look at whether for our school population, our town population, the way we deliver services, whether we just have too much stuff coming down the road in terms of what we have for assets. And we know our buildings, except for this in the school department, are 50, 60, 70. The town, in its past, 60 years ago, made a lot of investment in schools. They were built in the late 50s, early mid-60s, all that. Well, now we have a wave coming due, and so I think we need to be both prudent in where we look at putting some of these capital things, but also think about how we can restructure to do that. And maybe we need to make a big investment in new stuff, and hopefully the trade-off is we close old stuff and we can do some consolidation, we can find other efficiencies, so one pays for the other in terms of that. But I think one thing's clear is we cannot sustain the level of infrastructure we have and hope to keep North Kingstown, both on the town and school side, one of the destinations that people who want to stay in Rhode Island, a community they want to live in. And you balance that with keeping it affordable for citizens as well. We just can't sustain that. And so something's got to give. And so, I know we've talked about it a lot, but it's something that we need to stop talking about it and start moving out on in terms of that. The last point I want to make, I've made this point, but when you think about the choices you make, I think another bow wave that's coming, which is sort of out of the control of everyone here, is don't be fooled the way it looks now. Next year's budget, depending on how the pension numbers and stuff comes out, you only have to go look at now the fact that the town has to report pension and other liabilities, that there's probably a bow wave coming in fiscal year 18 from the underperformance of the state's pension fund to even the changes that were made, which maybe in hindsight are just going to be a Band-Aid. But those things are also coming down the road. So one of the things we talk about is why didn't you spend some money on things to put them in place when you had surpluses, is because I think we as a committee felt they're not sustainable things to fund, and we should be careful about funding things that we have to take back, because nobody wants to take back programs that are in place, right? Just ask the hockey parents on that kind of stuff. So I think we have to keep in mind that there are forces coming which is going to really cause us to want to get together in terms of consolidation. And the last point I'll make, because this is one of the points I've made. Nobody talks about building a Washington County Sheriff's Department or a Washington County Fire Department, or saying that if you don't like North Kingstown Water Department and you don't have your own well, that we're going to build another water system for that. For some reason, we feel the need to do that in education, and I understand why some of that is true. But I also think that you have to be conscious that 80% of the budget increase for the school department is equal to the amount we pay to send 100 kids to charter schools that we could educate at roughly probably 20% of that cost. I'm not here to debate the merits of that or something. I'm just making the point, if you want to know the biggest percentage driver of the school budget in terms of percent, so obviously salaries and stuff are the biggest number, but our charter school costs have risen 90% in 5 years. So there are consequences to choices we make.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. We appreciate it. Go ahead.
Just very quickly, I want to thank each and every person who came to the microphone to speak tonight. This is really your meeting, and we are, okay. I'll talk louder, sorry. I want to thank each and every person who came to the microphone tonight. This is your meeting. It's our opportunity to hear what you have to say, and I thank you all. I want to caution members of the audience and anyone who watches at home that not every number and figure that were thrown out tonight is actually accurate. Some of them are, some of them are not. So it's incumbent on you as informed citizens to make sure you do your own research to find out what numbers make sense. Look at our budgets. You're welcome to contact any of us, and I know that the school department would be willing to answer specific questions either through me or directly if you have specific questions about how the school budget works. So thank you all again.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate it. Motion?
You have it. The motion and a second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.